Hey everyone, welcome back to But Why Though Reviews, and today we're reviewing Alien Romulus. I'm Kate, I'm here with Prob,
Hey,
and I'm really excited to talk about this one. Prob, what were your synopsis first, of course. I'm gonna keep it short, gonna keep it sweet. I'm gonna go with the official long line, which is while scavenging the deep ends of a derelict space station, a group of young space colonizers come face to face with the most terrifying life form in the universe. Um, yeah, expectations. What did you have coming in?
yeah, so for me, like the Alien franchise kind of lives and dies with the first two entries, and out of that, I
Hmm.
really struggle to generate interest. Um, Ridley Scott's kind of investment in it for the last two entries with Covenant and Prometheus really didn't do anything for me either.
Hmm.
So my expectations were pretty low for any new entry announced. But then when they did say that it was going to be like a standalone sequel, kind of a separate story, more horror focused, especially with Fede Alvarez directing. I kind of made me really interested to see what they can go with it and just kind of bring it back to its roots, where it's not trying to expand the whole universe or the story, just keep it very
Hmm.
tight and focused. So I would say I was modestly excited for it for sure.
Yeah, I think for me, like I tried to know as little bit about it as possible. I didn't hate Prometheus and Covenant, but I didn't like Prometheus and Covenant either. I felt like there were aspects of it that I thought were really well done, but that's kind of where it ended. It never actually like I was bored and it didn't give me the excitement that I got from the original Alien films. And I just truly believe I don't think it lives and dies with one and two, but I think that they're the pinnacle of the franchise. And if you can't even get close to that, I kind of don't want you. Um, that being said, coming into it, I knew Fede Alvarez was directing, which excited me because I really liked his take on Evil Dead. I may be one of the dozens of people who did. But I really liked it as a really big Deadite myself. And Don't Breathe is probably one of my favorite pieces. And what's funny is without reading anything, I was very excited for him specifically to be helming this because I think one of the most important things about space horror is that confinement aspect to it and knowing how to use one space really well. And so that for me was that was the only expectation I had. Really good space horror, really good spaceship horror. Um, so what did you kind of walk out feeling? What did you like about it, Prob?
Yeah, I mean, I thought the movie was a really fun mixed bag. I think it's as enthralling and exciting as the middle of the road can get, really. For me, like to me, really, the film, it takes place between, Alien and Aliens, so it really kind of is in a position where it can use kind of the suffocating horror of Scott's original and then the more action type spectacle of Cameron's sequel. And it
Hmm.
does that to kind of varying effect. But to me, Romulus is what those classics kind of would have been if they weren't as visionary or genre defining. So it's fun, but never memorable. But what I really like about the movie is that it succeeds as a kind of thrilling B horror, where its kind of glaring missteps for me in terms of character and theme are mostly made up for its sheer atmosphere, the sheer thrills that it creates,
Yeah.
and just the great use of space and location and production design that you mentioned. So on that front, it really succeeds for me. So I went out not really loving it, but really having fun with what it kind of ended up being, which is this kind of big budgeted B horror fun. So that's what I kind of got out of it.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it B horror personally, but I will say I've cooled on it since I walked out. So when I walked out, I was really hype and I started writing my review and then I started thinking I was like, well, I want to kind of sit on it a little bit. And I agree with you on the character and theme part because I think it's a little muddled. I think the characters are a little rigid. But for me, the thrill that I had in my theater seat was close to what I had when I watched Aliens, one of the Draft House screenings in the theater. Like, and that for me is what I wanted. It's kind of like that kinetic pacing where it just keeps going. That's what I want from that type of thing. And I think for me, Alvarez's control of, like you said, space and the production design of it, that's really what shined through. And I found myself really invested, not necessarily in the characters, although Andy's my boy. I think he deserves the world. I really liked Andy for whatever reason, but I was invested in the situation. And I think that that's kind of the different thing. Whereas, like in Alien, I was very, very, very like invested in Ripley and her survival. Here, I don't hate our heroine, but I never really felt completely with her until the very end. And I think that that's kind of a misstep, but I didn't feel that in the theater. So it's kind of this weird thing for me. Like I kind of hold back from calling it a super mixed bag, but I have my critiques, but I'm also trying to at least hold on to the fact that when people make movies, they do make them for that experience. And I think this is probably one of my favorite experiences of the year in the theater. The soundscapes, the atmosphere, like everything else works on such a dynamic level. That it's hard. It's hard for me because I don't disagree. Like there are misses, but that I feel like such a mark because like actually I say this in the most endearing of ways. It reminds me of the video game Dead Space. And that's
I
why I
love Dead
think it
Space.
worked. Yeah, it worked for me so well because in Dead
Not Dead
Space,
Space 3 though.
no,
I
no,
don't I
no,
didn't
no, no,
like
no,
that
no.
one.
Yeah, no, no, no. One and two. That's where it ends. That is where the franchise dies with one and two for me.
There you
But
go.
but that you like what Dead Space did so well as a as a horror game, as a space horror game, and one that was heavily influenced by Alien was that it was about sound and darkness and the confinement of it all and the fear of space. That is always kind of overarching. That run one wrong turn, you're gonna run into that trouble and you can't just, blast your way through. You can't, and that's what I think Fede nailed. I'm just rambling at this point, but I'm this movie has me conflicted, man. Like I understand its faults, but I'm also just like, oh, I want to watch it again.
Yeah, so I agree with everything that you said there. Did you end up seeing it in IMAX? I saw it in
Mhm.
IMAX for the press.
I saw it
That
in
was
IMAX. I saw it in IMAX really close to the speaker. So
okay.
like
I'm not
it
as brave
it
as you. I went
rattled
back a little
me.
bit.
It rattled. Well, like this so like we were on the outside because I'm an aisle seater. I like the ease of leaving. And so we were up towards the back in the aisle and the way that the stereo is positioned, it wraps around that corner. So I just got blasted with all of that intensity, which may have also helped with setting the atmosphere.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, for all its missteps, there's no denying, Romulus as this kind of grand piece of atmospheric, immersive
Yeah.
horror, right? Yeah, so for all its missteps, there's no denying Romulus as kind of this like grand atmospheric piece of immersive horror, right? And what Fede Alvarez does, along with his director of photography, whose name is kind of escaping me at the moment, there's kind of this haunting liminal beauty to the film that kind of wriggles under your skin, right? Like each alarm blare, each whirring retro computer screen, the flickering, empty hallways, the visceral kind of neon red, all of it just envelops the senses, right? And so I really, outside of its faults, this is not a masterful film to me, but
Yeah.
it's a film it's that has a real command of sonic visual language, and it needs to be seen on really on the biggest screen possible. And that's why I really am a thumbs up on this movie for me. And on the character side of it, yes, like everything with Spaney's take on Rain, I really feel that she is really a promising character who over
Yes.
the course of the film gets reduced to a really lesser Ripley. Any
Mm-hmm.
inkling of insight into her character is really dashed the minute, she's given a pulse rifle, or she's doing the type of things that Ripley does, right? She's condemned
Yeah.
to the same plot beats of her franchise forebearer, right? And she's never afforded the space to forge kind of this distinctive persona like the rest of the ensemble, right? She's forced to
Yeah.
engage in kind of a shoddier type of retread of the crew members we've seen before. All of them, especially, they kind of blend to this homogenous whole, and they amount to really nothing more than xenomorph kind of fodder, right? And though each set piece that Alvarez crafts is really exhilarating, really well done. It's hard to really say any of the kills or the deaths are devastating outside of kind of the pure shock value that they bring.
Yeah.
And that's where I feel like if that part was kind of honed in, this movie really, really could have kind of reached kind of the echelon of the movies that it's kind of slapdash in the middle of, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's really wish I
Yeah.
would have done.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I think that that's what keeps getting me too, because it's almost like as a first stab, this is good. Like I'm excited for Alvarez to man to helm a trilogy because I think there is runway. Because I was really sad that Spaney became just one shots of Ripley, but a little bit smaller, like a shorter Sigourney Weaver consistently throughout the end, because I wanted to like be all in on her because I love like Ripley was the epitome for me of not just like a final girl, but very specifically a heroine and an action heroine because of how she acted in her circumstances, because of her relationships with her crew, and because of what she went up against. And I don't like Spenny is just very much like a vessel for everybody else's feelings up to a certain point. And I think Andy outshines her because of what you said where Rain has to kind of replicate all the steps of the past. Andy is a character that is taking very specific steps away from how we've seen synthetics in the other films. And I think
Exactly.
that
So
that's what's interesting.
exactly, and ironically, the only character Romulus gets right is the one that isn't even human, right? He's
Mm-hmm.
given a level of existential pathos that kind of we're able to latch onto besides the each kill, right? And
Yep.
and to be honest, I think that's the case with most of the Alien movies, right? You had Ian Holm in Alien 1 who's really kind of is bringing in the darker side of it, and then you
Mm-hmm.
had Lance Henriksen, right, in Aliens.
Mm-hmm.
So and he was one of my favorite characters in that movie. So I think
Yeah.
it does follow the thread that way. And what you're saying, like, you know what, Fede Alvarez shot, I think he did pretty well. For me, this is the third best Alien movie. Now that's not saying much, but it is the third best Alien movie. It's as exciting as the middle of the road can get for
I'll
me.
take it. I'll take it. And you know what? I want to know what your take is on this too, because one of the things that is always fascinated me about the Nostromo and the very specific take on sci-fi horror and science fiction in general of the alien universe is that at the beginning it's very banal. Like all of it is just every day. They're just miners. Like there's nothing shiny or special about the technology of space travel. It's just a thing we do to feed a capitalistic machine. And I think as we went further, and especially in Covenant and oh my God. I just said, what was the first one? The first of the prequels?
Prometheus?
Prometheus, yes. And Prometheus and Covenant, it's flashy and it's bright and it's beautiful and it's like that. And for me, it almost feels like coming back home or coming back to the roots in a way that I don't think it's necessarily swallowed by it. But Fede has an understanding of what made the Alien movies special. And I hope now that he's gotten the homage out of the way, that what comes next is going to be building and going to be giving me the continuation of a franchise that like really means a lot to me. Um,
Yeah, and speaking of kind of getting the homage out of the way, this movie brings back a deceased actor in a way that's
yes.
really, to me, in very poor taste, and it's so
Yeah.
distracting. I don't want to say who that is just because I want people to experience the horror themselves.
Yeah.
But yeah, like when you see him, the kind of technology, the deep fake technology they use to bring that character back, it's such an eyesore. And on top of that, it kind of becomes so uncanny where it kind of scared me more than the xenomorph itself. So that's another thing. And I think who knows, that might have been one Disney thing rather than a Alvarez thing because Disney has this kind of
Disney
history
is.
of bringing
Mm-hmm.
them back. I mean, you had Peter Cushing in Rogue One, you had that very young looking Indy in Dial of Destiny. I don't know why, and then you had like Luke Skywalker as well in Mandalorian, the end of
Leia.
season two. I don't know
Yeah.
why Disney's doing this. I don't know wwhy they're bringing back just like digitally
Money.
resurrecting these
It's
people.
so bad.
it's scarier than the xenomorphs. And
It
in
is.
terms of exactly, and yeah, I think yeah, there is a lot of promise to it. I hope this film actually does well. I really want this film to do
Hmm.
well. I really want, if they can go further, and I think maybe let's abandon these characters and let's do something else again.
Yeah.
That's what I feel like doing. That's where I would
Hmm.
go and do something fresh. Maybe within the same timeline. Maybe same time Aliens is happening. Let's do something then, and then really become something its own. And the movie does go for that. I mean, in the last
Yeah.
chapter, it kind of tweaks the mythos, right? It kind of gives you a new kind of monster at the end. Again, I don't want to spoil it, and it does something very
Yeah.
interesting there. Um, I don't know how effective. I think it taste will vary among people how they really feel about it.
Yeah.
I liked it. I thought it was pretty interesting and
I thought the
showed the
third
movie
act,
having it.
yeah, I thought the third act was its strongest. Like the moment it
Mhm.
splits off and you think it's done and then it keeps going, it actually earned the keeps going piece. And a lot of movies don't now. A lot
Yeah,
of movies I just
and
want to end.
exactly. It does the aliens thing, right? When
Mm-hmm.
you thought it's over, and then Lance Henriksen gets split apart in half, right? It does it, and I thought, oh my
Mm-hmm.
God, here we go. The first half of the movie was Alien, and now we're getting into the aliens part with the classic quotes it's bringing back to.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think the film is a very sound piece of Hollywood blockbuster. I really did enjoy my time with it. I didn't expect to
Yeah.
enjoy my time with it as much. It's as it is as entertaining as it is frustrating because there's so much there it could have
Yeah.
it nears the ability to touch greatness, I feel.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, third best alien
No.
movie though.
No, I entirely agree. And I think that that's the thing that I've been wrestling with a lot because I think the most, like, I think the creature design in this one, and obviously, like, the xenomorph is such a classic and iconic monster that you can't change it too much, like, at least from its base piece. But I think the choices they make in the third, in the third act, which is actually reaching into some of the comic lore, which is really cool to see, um,
Reminded me of
is
Prometheus as
really,
well.
yeah,
The
well,
design.
yes, yeah, it very much reminded me of Prometheus. I feel like it was a better executed because it still felt grimy. It still felt connected to what what we have seen and what's been built in a way that I think Prometheus missed the bar on. But I think that like that the two most unsettling things, the deceased actor and then that creature design for the very end. Those are the two things that kept me up last night. Um but I do think there's a larger conversation that needs to be had. I mean, because right now, when you look at like all the different SAG-AFTRA strikes, like there is this concerted effort to stop to stop the usage of AI for lines, to stop the usage of AI for face captures. And I think what the resurrection of dead actors has turned into is like that's like the commonly used thing now. And I don't think that they being studio execs are grasping just like the can of worms that it is and also just how disrespectful it is at the end of the day. And I think that it's very hard. And I think for some moviegoers, this could have been a masterpiece, but that one piece will keep them from recommending it. It'll keep them from sinking into it. And I think that that's one of the pieces that I think is going to stand out as we see more critics talk about it and as we see more people in general start to watch it. That being said, I do agree. I want it to do well, and I want it to do well because I think I personally thought that Alvarez deserved a second Evil Dead movie. Um,
I'm not
I
gonna shake my
want
head fully for that, but
I
I'll do side to
he
side.
he was cooking. He was cooking. But I think here he really solidified one his understanding of the property, but also his understanding of the place he wanted to take it. I do want to know how much studio influence was on some of the choices though, because I think right now we're kind of in that resurrection space, not just of dead actors, but of properties where a lot of studios are trying to hammer in a lot of nostalgia notes because they think that that's what's going to sell. And so I am curious to know how much of that is studio guidance versus Fede's specific take. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I really feel like they kind of had their hands on it a bit, and I think that a lot of the reasons, a lot of that kind of meddling is the reason why I think holds the film from really
Mhm.
being as memorable as it is, right? And like I was saying, I feel this movie I think would have actually a lot of people might have even called it a masterpiece if it didn't have the baggage, I feel, of
Yeah.
the previous films. But
Yeah.
at the same time, like I was saying, it really feels like it's what those movies would have been had it come out then. It would have been those movies, except lacking the kind of visionary genre defining element. It would have been fun,
Yeah.
but not as memorable. But I think you place it a little bit higher than me. I'm calling it B horror, but I think it's really fun, big budget B horror. And I
Yeah.
don't think that I'm not saying it as a bad thing. I
Yeah.
think I
Yeah.
love B.
Be horror
You know,
is beautiful. Yeah.
I'm a big Giallo guy.
I I think very specifically the caliber of Weta effects in this film makes me stop from calling it B horror. That's the only reason. Because I think the practical effects work was very, very good.
it
And
was
I'm
it
a
was great.
sucker for that. And that's what I wanted. Because like that, I think that was also one of the big issues with the past two Alien films was there was an over reliance on CGI and computer effects over like the real tactile nature of a xenomorph spit dripping down onto you that you can't really capture.
Yeah,
You
for
know?
sure. Yeah, and I think that's actually going to be one of the movie's bigger selling points. I think they're doing that a lot with the marketing as well. I think they're saying that it's
Yeah.
using a lot of practical effects. Yeah, I just like, it's hard to kind of actually I'm going to take that back. It is easy to mess up like a franchise,
Yeah.
but I think what the movie does with the kind of mythos, the lore that it has of the alien universe, I think it uses it really well. And to be honest, the movie really grabbed me from the first frame. You see the ship crawling in on a slow
Yeah.
crawl. You see that classic text there. You see that clickety clackety kind of retro futuristic kind of technology that's there, and uh, you know that's what makes these movies so memorable. I think the movie does. I think the movie does a lot well with the existing lore that's there, and I don't think it does a disservice to it at all. I'm very
Yeah.
proud to call this, an Alien franchise. This is what Alien Cubed or Resurrection should have been. This is what it should
Yes.
have been.
Well, and I think, and as we like, I want to know what you think for people to see it. My take is I do want, like, we kind of both said we wanted to make money, we wanted to succeed. I do want people to see it. And I think it's because this is kind of the Alien movie that I've been waiting for, not in that it is perfect, but that it gave me the theater excitement of the originals, and it makes me feel like the franchise still has gas because
Mhm.
it's been a drought. It's been a proper drought for good alien content. So what about you? I guess final thoughts and whether you think somebody should head to the theater.
Yeah, final thoughts is again, I'm gonna say the third time. Third best Alien movie. Doesn't mean that's not saying much, but still, it's as fun as the middle of the road can get. And I would definitely recommend watching this movie. I think it's a great time at theaters, and I say specifically theaters. I mean, you have
Yes.
I rarely kind of boast IMAX like because a lot of films come out they don't really use it well. I think this movie
Yeah.
really really needs to be seen in IMAX. It's a really great fun time at the movies, and really, you know, we use the word immersive so much, but really, I was enthralled, and as much as the kind of problems I had with it, I kind of threw them to the side, and I'm like, oh my God, look at its mouth inside a mouth. Oh my God, I'm in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thumbs up for me.
Rob, where can people find you?
You can find me all over at my name, Rob Jugbands 96 on Instagram, Twitter. I write for the Why Though Range magazine along with a bunch of other publications, and you can see me hating and doing all sorts of stuff to movies. Sounded
And you can
awful.
Hey, I think we balance each other because I will say I love our video reviews because I think we have the same thoughts but with different energies behind them. Because I don't think we truly disagree on everything. You can find me at Randier on Twitter, Instagram, and just about everywhere on the web. And you can read my written review over at butwhythough.net, and it's down below in the descriptions. Follow us at butwhythoughpc. And yeah, go to the movies, y'all.
Go do it.